Hello and welcome to Prudent Media. My name is Sachin Chatte and on this program we take a look at the latest releases. Today we will take a look at Dune 2 and Kiran Rao's latest film Laapataa Ladies. First, let's start with Laapataa Ladies. After a 14-year-long hiatus, Kiran Rao returns to the big screen with Laapataa Ladies. While Dhobi Ghat, which released in 2010, had a distinct and impressive art house sensibility, with this film she has gone all out in Bollywood style. There is comedy, tragedy, romance and even songs. But what drives the film is the messaging. The emancipation of women in rural India. The film is set in 2001 in a fictional state called Nirmal Pradesh, but factually not a lot must have changed on the ground even today. The screenplay by Sneha Desai has a tightrope walk to do in terms of delivering what the story has to say. Occasionally, the dialogues get a bit preachy, but I guess when things don't change for decades, you have to be loud and clear in what you want to say. The premise of the film is fairly simple. Two newlywed brides are interchanged. One goes to the wrong man and the other is desperately looking for a husband. How is this complicated, you might ask? The story is set in the early days of mobile phones and set in a village where women do not utter the names of their husbands. Also, they wear a ghungat, which is a veil, all the time, and it is hard for others to see their face and vice versa. A crowded general class compartment in a train has two newly married couples sitting in front of each other. Fool, played by Nitansh Goyal, and Jaya, played by Pravitha Ranta, end up in the wrong place because the former's husband, Deepak, mistakenly walks out with the latter at a station and their similar costume adds to the identity confusion. Fool, meanwhile, is stranded at a small town station with no help in sight till Manju Mai, played by Chaya Kadam, an elderly tough cookie lady who has seen it all, takes her under her wings. Being called a respectable woman is the biggest fraud, she says, and those words are used to keep women in check, she adds. Some of those conversations between the two ladies are very in your face, but that seems to be an intentional choice of the filmmakers. You feel the plight of Fool. She doesn't even know the details of her own village or that of her husband. Jaya, meanwhile, is up to something and the local police inspector, played by Ravi Kishan, gets a whiff of it. When it comes to highlighting the lopsided attitude of the society with wit and satire, Laapataa Ladies does a top job. Deepak is genuinely concerned about his wife, but the only picture he has of her is in a ghungat taken on the wedding day. When another man comments on how anyone can recognize a woman with a veil, we see the man's wife wearing a niqab. When it comes to suppressing women, it doesn't really matter what the background of the men is. The fact that they are men is sufficient enough. Apart from Kiran Rao's direction, what works in favor of the film is the setting, the lingo, the characters and the mise-en-scene. Some situations and conversations may be a bit filmy, but the characters always look true. The relatively lesser-known faces of Pravitha Ranta, Nitanshi Goyal and Sparsh Srivastav as the leading trio are impressive. Chaya Kadam makes a presence felt in those few scenes, while Ravi Kishan as the cop is a hoot. I'm going to go with 3.5 out of 5 stars for Kiran Rao's Laapataa Ladies. And now let's take a look at Dune 2. When Dune was released in 2021, the fate of the subsequent film was slightly uncertain. If the first part worked, only then there would be a sequel. After all, even David Lynch couldn't pull it off when he adapted Frank Herbert's novel back in 1984. But Denis Villeneuve's film was a success, and how? The strategy not to cram everything in one film worked, and even though the film didn't have a conclusion, the journey was quite spectacular. Given the time that has lapsed between the two films, a quick Wikipedia check to refresh oneself about all that happened in part 1 is in order. Dune 2 picks up where the previous film left. With power equations in play, Paul Atreides, played by Timothée Chalamet, and his mother Jessica, played by Rebecca Ferguson, survived an attack by Baron Harkonnen, played by Stellan Skarsgård, and other members of his family. Paul now tries to amalgamate in the Fremen world and becomes friends with Chani, played by Zendaya. Some of the Fremen are convinced and believe the prophecy of a mother and son bringing prosperity to Arrakis. Stilgar, played by Javier Bardem, is a Fremen leader who is convinced that Paul is Lisan al-Gaib, the leader whose arrival was prophesized. The Fremen refer to him as Muad'Dib, which is one notch below the other title. Paul stands in the way of many, Raban, played by Dave Bautista, wants him out of the way, and so does Baron Harkonnen, who then uses Fied Rauta, played by Austin Butler, so that Paul doesn't get to the Emperor, played by Christopher Walken. Denis Villeneuve has pieced it together so stunningly that even if you don't follow the intricate plot details and the theories about what Frank Herbert's novel signifies, it is still quite a cinematic experience. This is big budget filmmaking of the highest order and a great relief from the comic book cinematic universe. In some ways, there is also the basic plot which is easy to follow. You know who is good, who is evil, and how it is likely to end. That itself keeps the boat sailing smoothly. The focus is largely on Chalamet's character here, and even though there are talented actors like Florence Pugh and Zendaya, among others, to some degree they take a backseat. While Dune 2 at least had a conclusion, unlike the previous part, there is ample scope for a third film here now. Bring it on, I say. And I'm going to go with 3.5 out of 5 stars for Denis Villeneuve's Dune Part 2. Well, that's what I thought of the films that were released this week. Do let us know what you think. And I'll be back with you next week with more movie reviews. Till then, it's goodbye from me.